Hello, welcome to episode 67 of the Card Combo Show with me, Chocobilly, and probably the last episode of 2021. What a year it's been. Don't know about you guys, but I am gonna be happy to put this behind me. But that said, 2021 has brought with it some of the most interesting cards in the Final Fantasy TCG, and Opus 15 has been just hilarious fun. Actually, to be fair, it's probably been my favourite Opus since a long time. I couldn't tell you exactly when. But yeah, anyway, this week I'm going to be looking at cards that can attack more than once. Oh yes, we've got a good host of fun cards, and I'm going to be looking at Gilgamesh FFBE from Opus 14, Tidus from Opus 1, Tidus, sorry, Filo from Opus 15, Vermilion Bird, let's see, Zhuyu from Opus 5, and finally Estinien from Opus 6. So first and foremost, we've got Gilgamesh FFBE. So if you have 3 or more different elements among the cards in your break zone, Gilgamesh gains plus 1000 power, haste, and first strike. And if you have 7 or more, Gilgamesh FFBE also gains brave and can attack 3 times in the same turn. And when Gilgamesh attacks, choose one character. If you have 5 or more different elements among cards in your break zone, dull it and freeze it. So a lot to take in there, but basically the more elements in your break zone, the better. And yeah, you just get a lot of good effects off it. Now, one of the downsides to this card is that when it attacks, it always has to choose something, and then you will, it'll check to see if there are elements there, and that means things that have to be targeted, or if your opponent has a forward, the only forward that's there. Actually, it's choose one character. Actually, never mind. Ignore that because you can choose your own characters as well, which is kind of hilarious actually now to think about it. So you can dull and freeze your own forwards, or backups, or monsters. Anyway, yeah, but realistically, the more elements in your break zone, the better. So obviously, multi-element cards are the best because you get them into the break zone. They now account for 2 of those elements. So realistically, you'd only need 3 multi-element or cards in the break zone that don't share any elements, and then a either light or dark card, and you have now met all of Gilgamesh's prerequisites to be able to attack 3 times, freeze stuff when he attacks, and just have haste and brave and blah. Lots of good stuff. Citra. So Citra's a decent card because she can ultimately, you obviously go into the break zone, that's fine, she's then the light card there, but you can discard a light card from hand to use her ability to stop one of your opponent's forwards from attacking or being able to block, and that's a nice way to be able to get a light or dark card, or just a light card, sorry, into the break zone. Obviously the same applies for Reagan, I believe it's called, who's the other Opus 10 dark card, kind of that mirrors Citra. But yeah, being able to get that light or dark card into the break zone nice and easy with this card is awesome. And not to mention the fact that Citra is a really, 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 really good EX. So very playable in pretty much every deck, you know. Alchemist, again, another great way to be able to get a just card into the break zone whilst also searching something as well. So you might have a fair few different elements in your break zone already, but you don't have Gilgamesh FFB. You can use Alchemist to put that card in, or put a card into the break zone, well, a forward anyway, and then get Gilgamesh to your hand, then play it onto the field. And, you know, Alchemist could have put the correct element into the break zone to make it so Gilgamesh can attack 3 times as well. Summoner. So, yeah, Gilgamesh being able to attack quite a few times is, you know, very threatening. So you want to give him the due protection. But not just that, you want to be able to protect your break zone. Now, there are cards like Alba, when she attacks, she gets to remove stuff from your break zone, as well as a myriad of other cards as well, but they are less played than something like Mist Dragon. Mist Dragon is a very playable card and a very good card, but you know, ultimately can remove your break zone from the game, and that is something you do not want to have happen if you're running something like Gilgamesh FFBE. So having something like Summoner, which you can just use at any point for playing 1 ice, just to stop that summon from happening, is very, very useful. So I would recommend it. Luge. So obviously Gilgamesh, it's very easy to get Gilgamesh's first ability off, where he can become plus 1000 haste and first strike, just so long as you have, you know, 3 elements in your break zones. That could be ice, water, and a light or dark card. And then Gilgamesh already becomes an 8k haste first strike, which is really good. But that's still pretty small, to be fair. So using something like Luge, so it actually gains plus 2000 power and brave as well, so it then becomes a 10k haste first strike brave, is very threatening. And then if you do manage to get it to 7 elements in your break zone, it's then a 10k first striker that can attack 3 times and hopefully freeze loads of stuff on your opponent's field and just really go ham. But yeah, just using Lugaid means that he becomes permanently a bit more durable and hopefully sticks around for a bit longer. Realm. So, another way to be able to get lots of elements into your break zone is monsters. And using something like Realm means that she can be played onto the field, then go and search just monsters of any element. So, you know, you could be playing Ice Water, and you play this Realm. You can search yourself a Lava Spider. Actually, no, you want to do something that can be put into the break zone. You know, there's lots of different things, though. And this ultimately can be played onto the field, and then you can put those monsters into the break zone through their own effect, or if they're forwards, you know, just block with them and then kill them. And then they can then be used towards Gilgamesh's effect as well. You don't have to be in loads of different elements to be able to force these cards into a deck. Using something like Realm, which just searches and plays them onto the field, or something like Alchemist, which just puts things into the break zone, makes it so much easier to be able to do this. Also, it's worth noting, I didn't put it in this, but the Opus 15 Realm I actually use quite a bit to be able to bring monsters of any element onto the field to then use their ability as well. It's a lot slower than this Realm, because obviously that searches 1 as opposed to 2, but it still means that you can search something of any element to get it into the break zone. Luso. So, similar but not really the same. Luso obviously makes use of different elements in the forwards you control on the field, and Gilgamesh makes use of different elements in the break zone. Now, obviously, Luso generally gets paired with Opus something Yuri, like Yuri, because when he's on the field, he is every element, thereby fulfilling all of Luso's text, so Luso can attack and deal opponent damage. But if you are running lots of different element forwards, say you're running like a Golbez deck or something, you've got lots of different elements coming onto the field, that's great because that will fulfill Luso's text, and when they're not in the field and they're in the break zone, that will fulfill Gilgamesh's text. So either way, you've got something good to go. And Magic Pot, because why not have, well, just play Gilgamesh on the field, haste, attack 3 times, use Magic Pot to put Gilgamesh into the break zone, to bring Gilgamesh back onto the field, and he's got haste. And again, if you can attack 3 times, you just attack 6 times. I mean, for paying 3 CP and then the 1 CP for Magic Pot, that's pretty good if you ask me. Right, Tidus. So, for each forward other than Tidus you control, he gains plus 1000 power, and Blitz, Ace, S, and 2 water until the end of the turn. Tidus gains... Yes, I am going to flip-flop between Tidus and Tidus. Sorry, I can't help it. Tidus can attack as many times as points of damage this turn. So, he got a lot of play back in Opus 1, but not so much anymore. But I still think he's a decent guy. I think it's just the fact he's quite fragile, quite easy to kill, no protection, no built-in protection anyway, and you do have to pay 4 CP to basically be able to make it to attack, you know, hopefully 6 times, but your opponent can then just break him, and it wasn't really worth it in the end anyway. But still, something like Minwu makes it so he's got a bit more survivability, so yes, he can attack up to 6 times in a go. But if your opponent's got, you know, enough forwards to be able to block them, Tidus is probably going to be able to get a couple of attacks through before he ends up popping. So if your opponent has, say, I don't know, 3 or 4 7k forwards and Tidus is a 9k, he only needs to be blocked twice for Tidus to die. So having Minwu there means that he will be able to survive a little bit longer. Obviously, you can also throw Lava Spider into the mix as well, because that means every time Tidus attacks, he will at base become a 10k, and unless he's blocked by a 10k forward, which there are few and far between, although with the new Opus 15 Titan, actually fairly common now, but still, it just means that Tidus becomes a little bit safer, is a much more threatening attacker, and hopefully will survive with the likes of Minwu. Dragoon, so if you're not going to have Minwu on the field or some way of making Tidus bigger, at the very least give him first strike, so it means that when he is blocked, he'll kill the blocker before he dies. Unsanganashi. So just if you happen to be in a position where you can actually use Tidus's S and your opponent doesn't have a response to be able to kill Tidus, just protect him with Unsanganashi from those EX bursts, really. Now, obviously, there is Kimari, which does protect your Job Guardians and Final Fantasy X characters from summons and abilities, but still, the chances are if you're going to hit 6 times, which, let's face it, is going to be fairly unlikely anyway, but if you do 6 points of damage to your opponent and they're in something like Fire or Lightning, and they hit some nasty EX bursts, the first one will kill Kimari, the second one will then kill Tidus. So just playing Unsanganashi and using its ability to make so Tidus cannot be targeted from the get-go, then means that it doesn't matter how many EX bursts you hit, as long as they're targeting, they cannot target Tidus, Tidus even, and he'll be safe. Now, it could be a case that your opponent's waiting for you to use Unsengamashi, then they will respond, at which point, that's just the way the game goes. But just making sure that he can't be targeted before those EX bursts happen is very, very useful. Zemus, 6 points of damage coming through, but your opponent's got 6 forwards. Why does that just make Tidus unblockable? Ninja, so let's say, Ninja, when this forward attacks, choose one forward, deal at 5,000 damage. So he can give that to Tidus, and let's say your opponent's got a few forwards, but they can't block, and you're only actually getting a few attacks through, only say 3 or 4 attacks through. I say only, that's still a lot, but each attack Tidus does, that will deal 5k something. If your opponent's got a 10k forward, it only takes 2 attacks from Tidus to be able to kill that forward, so still pretty useful. No, so obviously every attack Tidus puts through with no on the field, you get to reactivate a backup, which is pretty good. If you get 6 attacks through, that's incredible, and you get 6 reactivated backups, which you can combo with something like, I don't know, Fiona, or something else, I don't know what. Choco Latte. Just being able to reactivate your backups is awesome, and if you combo that with a Rosa, if Rosa party attacks with something, and when Rosa party attacks even, she will then reactivate and be able to attack once more that turn. So realistically, if you can party attack with Tidus even, 3 times, that means with no on the field, party attacking with Tidus and Rosa would actually reactivate 2 backups, which you can keep on comboing to do lots of other fun things as well. I didn't actually put it in here, but it's also worth noting that the new Kais, I think it's Kais anyway, when a party attack attacks, reactivate Kais, so you can combo that with No and Rosa and Tidus, so actually you get to reactivate 3 backups on an attack as well, so that'd be pretty funny. Alright, Filo. So, Wind Soul is S and Wind. Choose one Job Sky Pirate forward. Until the end of the turn, it gains Brave, and this forward can attack twice on the same turn. So, obviously, this card isn't the one that can attack multiple times, but can make it so that any Sky Pirate can, which is fun. Also, fun side note is that I've seen this card played in a Dragoons deck, utilising the new Wind Dragoons, which was actually a pretty good shout, because, it can generate water as well, which means you can also still get your water Freyas onto the field as well, which is quite cool. Anyway, sorry. So the Opus 1 Varn. So when Varn enters the field, you may play 1 Wind forward, of course 3 less from your hand onto the field. That's fine, I guess. But when Varn attacks, choose up to 2 backups you control, activate them. So if you use Filo's S to be able to make it so that Varn can attack twice, Varn will then reactivate 4 backups. If you throw No into the mix, you get a total of 6 reactivated backups just from Varn attacking twice. Not bad. Then you got this Varn, my ex-favourite card. Now it's Gilgamesh. Go-Go, sorry. But yeah, when Varn attacks, select up to 2 of the following 5. Draw a card, choose 1 backup, activate it, choose 1 forward, dull it, choose 1 forward, it gains plus 2,000 power until the turn, or choose 1 forward, it cannot block this turn. So yeah, just, if you can get 2 attacks with Varn, and you get to draw 2 cards, pretty decent. Or, choose 1 forward, dull it, choose another forward, can't block. Then in the second attack, another forward can't block, and, I don't know, draw a card. That's still pretty good. There's lots of cool combos with it, but ultimately, just getting 2 cards, I think, is probably the best over the 2 attacks. Fran. So, when Fran attacks, choose 1 forward opponent controls. Deal 1,000 damage for each Job Sky Pirate other than Fran you control. Thankfully, this does also include the Sky Pirate backups as well. So it means that Fran can get pretty big pretty quickly. And again, like what I said with Ninja previously, is that the first attack might deal some damage to something, but the second attack will probably end up killing something. Varn. When Varn attacks, choose 1 forward you control. You may return 1 backup across 2 or less you control to its owner's hand. If you do so, activate the forward. So this is perfectly fine. I've talked about this before with the Balthier, which is obviously the card I've already played with from Opus 2, where you get to dull and deal 2k something, which isn't really that great, but, it's something at least. But you get to bounce something back to your hand, which, as I'm sure you're all aware, is very useful with a couple of certain cards. Such as Thief. I will make Mill a thing, I promise you. I love Mill. Why isn't it better? It is better. It's good, really. You never make a deck based entirely on Mill. You just put Mill there just to, slowly chip away your opponent's deck without them realising. And all of a sudden, you've milled them out of the game. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, being able to return Thief, or even maybe 2 Thieves, back to your hand to then replay them, to be able to mill your opponent a couple of cards is just good fun. Why not? Also, you get to activate a couple of characters, or a couple of forwards, whenever Varn attacks, using the attack with Filo. thing. Kais. So, this is stupid in the card I was talking about earlier, and it makes no sense really, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So, if a forward you control formed a party this turn, the cost required to play Kais is reduced by 2. When a party you control attacks, activate Kais. So you would have to party attack Varn with another forward, and then you could return Kais back to your hand. But Kais would also be activated from that party attack as well. But it basically just means that even though you're bouncing it back to your hand, which you may not want to have happen, because you've party attacked, Kais can go back onto the field for free, effectively. So as though he's never left, aside from the fact that he is now dull. So you may want to make sure that you had used him for something. And ultimately, Kais would have been active had you not have bounced him back to your hand. But you see, this is why I said it was stupid. But it's a funny little tidbit, and it's something you could do if you really wanted to. Mion, because... Oh... And Leviathan, Lord of the Hall, yeah, because bouncing things everywhere is horrible. Obviously, you can use this with Bismarck as well, so you get to draw a card to hand, which is decent. But ultimately, if you can attack twice with Varn and bounce 2 backups back to your hand, that means every attack also gets you a 9 or minus 9k on a 40 opponent controls as well, which is not great for your opponent. Vermilion Bird, let's see, Zhuyu. So it gains first strike on attack, and when a forward damaged by Zhuyu is put from the field into the break zone, on the same turn, activate Zhuyu. And then he can attack once more this turn, and then pay a fire, gains haste till the end of the turn. Yeah, I've talked about this card before with a few things, but there's some interesting combos nonetheless. So Ninja. Every time Zhuyu would attack, you deal 5k to something, and, hopefully if just that one attack deals 5k to something, that breaks a forward, so then Vermilion Bird, the sea gets to stand back up again, and you'll get another attack, regardless of whether or not you are blocked by something or deal damage to your opponent. Provided that one 5k ping kills something, Vermilion Bird gets to attack again. Chelinka. So this is interesting because obviously you can use Chelinka to make it so Vermilion Bird can attack twice. But this is all based entirely on the way that these cards are worded. So when Chelinka enters field, choose one forward. Until the end of the turn, it gains Braver, and this forward can attack twice in the same turn. And Zhuyu's text is, Vermilion Bird, let's see, Zhuyu can attack once more this turn. So Chelinka, what she does is she sets the base amount a forward can attack by to 2 rather than 1. But Vermilion Bird Zhuyu simply says can attack once more this turn, so it's additive. So it means that you can have the base 2 and then once more makes it 3 or 4 or 5. It just means that at base Zhuyu can attack twice, which if you combo with something like Ninja, you get those 2 attacks off, you deal 5k twice to the same forward, you kill it, you then get a 3rd attack off. Titan. So this is kind of funny. You can use Titan, or you could attack with Vermilion Bird Zhuyu, your opponent doesn't block it. You deal a point of damage to your opponent, you then cast Titan while still in your attack phase, so that Vermilion Bird Zhuyu does deal damage to a forward opponent controls. That will then reactivate Zhuyu, and it can attack again. Because of the way Titan is worded, where it says the former deals damage equal to its power to the latter, means that the source of damage is not Titan the summon, but actually Zhuyu itself. So because Zhuyu is dealing the damage and killing a forward, Zhuyu can then reactivate and attack again. Same sort of thing applies for Hecaton Share and a couple of other cards in the game as well. Shunryu Celestia, so it basically means that if Zhuyu did die to something, it was blocked by a 10k or say whatever, when it's put from the field into the break zone, you do get to minus 3k something as well, so it could be the forward that blocked it and kill that, or it could simply just be minus 3k to something else that you want to deal chip damage to or whatever. And Machinist, now this is just stupid, again another stupid silly little tidbit, but I like talking about it anyway. Let's say you have 2 forwards on the field, Zhuyu and something else, whatever, it doesn't matter. And your opponent has 2 forwards on their field, an 8k forward and a 4k forward. You play Machinist onto the field and give Zhuyu and the other forward you control the ability to dull, choose one forward, deal at 4k damage. You could dull your other forward, deal 4k to your opponent's 8k forward. You then dull Zhuyu to deal a further 4k to that 8k forward, thereby killing it. That gets to reactivate Zhuyu. Zhuyu can then dull again to deal 4k to your opponent's other 4k forward and kill it, at which point Zhuyu gets to reactivate. Zhuyu can now attack 3 times, but doesn't have Brave. Which is just stupid. Obviously you could use something like Momody to give him Brave, at which point he can attack 3 times as well, but ultimately this just really shows how, so long as Zhuyu is the source of damage, and you can kill multiple things on your opponent's field, Zhuyu can attack as many times as things you can kill using Zhuyu, which is quite funny. And Machinist never gets played, so I figured I'd just talk about it, because it's another one of those cards which it makes another card the source of damage, which is always a good thing. Alright, finally we have Estinien. If you control 5 or more backups, Estinien gains haste. When Estinien is blocked, break the blocking forward. 1 lightning, activate Estinien. Estinien can attack once more this turn. You can only use this ability during your turn and only once per turn. So a very, very strong card that has not stopped being played since its release in Opus 6 and got a very pretty legacy flaw in Opus 14, I think? Anyway, yeah, so very good strong card. So, Magic Pot again! As I mentioned, Estinien can attack, well, he has haste if you have 5 backups, and he can attack twice if you pay a lightning. So you'd need 2 lightning and an earth for this, but ultimately, Estinien comes into the field, can haste, and you deal a point of damage to your opponent, you reactivate him, attack again, and you get to deal another point of damage to your opponent. You use the Magic Pot to bring in another Estinien into your, or you put this Estinien into the break zone to bring another Estinien onto the field. If you have 5 backups, gains haste, can attack, then you pay the lightning, gains haste, or not gains haste, sorry, can then attack a second time. So that's 4 attacks with Estinien. If you happen to have a 3rd Estinien in your deck, and you can still retain all of your 5 backups, and you have another Magic Pot in the field, why not do it a 3rd time and actually get 6 attacks through, which is pretty funny. Chilinka, so similar to Zhuyu, Chilinka will set Estinien's base attacks to 2 rather than 1, and then Estinien's text says he can attack once more this turn, so actually it means that Estinien will be able to attack 3 times in total with Chilinka and Estinien. Go-Go, so you attack with Go-Go, you attack with Estinien, you then use Estinien's ability, which Go-Go then mimics, and Go-Go can then reactivate and attack again as well. Pretty good. Begamnon. When Begamnon enters the field, choose one forward opponent controls, activate it. It gains, if possible, this forward must block until the end of the turn. So these two are a very good combo to get rid of something you just really don't want on your wow, I'm just mixing words together now. Opponent's forward lineup. So maybe they have something big and nasty that you really don't want there. You play Begamnon, it gets activated, has to block, you attack with Estinien. Any forward that is blocked by your, or that blocks Estinien, just breaks. Now obviously there are forwards that cannot be broken, so you need to be careful of that. And there are forwards when they're targeted and things like that. They will then do nasty things like Basker's Final Aeon, for example, even if you use Begamnon to target it to activate it. That would sort of trigger Estinien, so Estinien would still pop, so you need to be careful of things like that as well. But still a very good combo to get rid of some nasty forwards on your opponent's field. Barbara, so let's say you attack with Estinien and your opponent blocks with something that is bigger than Estinien, but it would die anyway. They then make it so that forward cannot be broken. What you can use with Barbara is just pay 1 to make it so Estinien becomes bigger than the forward that is blocking it. Even though that forward cannot be broken and will not take the damage, well, it will take the damage from Estinien, but ultimately won't die. It means that Estinien himself also will not die. So that's a nice way of being able to save Estinien if your opponent has combat tricks. And finally, Hope. Now, a bit weird to try and wrangle a ice wind forward into a deck with Estinien in. But still, if you are able to get Hope onto the field with Estinien, it means that every time that you pay the 1 lightning to activate Estinien, that will then activate another 2 characters on your field, which, could be another 2 forwards if you really wanted. Also works nicely because, lightning does have a lot of dull abilities, which means that when you do dull stuff out of the way with Hope on the field, it also becomes frozen. So it kind of fits nicely into that style of deck. And that is a wrap on 2021. Yeah. What a year. Jesus. Wow. Not a great year, if I'm perfectly honest with you, as some of you might have seen my previous video I uploaded earlier this week. But, if it hasn't been a great year, that just means we're better prepared for the future. So, all we can do really is take what we have and move forward with that information. And we've seen a couple of spoilers now for the next set, and they seem fine. I mean, there was Heretical Knight Garland, which was interesting, another cloud backup, which is strange, but as someone that doesn't really play Final Fantasy VII decks that much because they're kind of too easy, if you ask me, it's nice to have a cloud card that doesn't rely on you playing Final Fantasy 7, and it's just, he's a perfectly fine fire backup if you ask me. Anyway, I hope you guys have had a good year at least, and I thank you so much for all the support I've had over the past year. The channel's doing, pretty well, given that over the past year or so, everyone's just kind of been, everyone's future's been uncertain with COVID and just so much going on in the world right now. But thank you so much for all the support, guys. It really means the world to me. And here's to making, just tons of great new videos in the new year. See you later.